Now it's starting to record. It's
Yes.
recording. Okay. Thank you so much, Prashan, Ashley, for your ability to be involved in the virtual womb wellness. You have so much experience. We need that type of thing for women who are starting out on their womb wellness journey. And I just want to give you an opportunity to just talk because you have so much that you can share.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Ashay, for this opportunity. And thank you, everyone, for taking the time to watch and listen to my testimonial. So my name is Prashan Wilson Ashley, and I am the co-producer, co-director of a documentary about fibroids entitled The F Word, Fibroid Stories. So my fibroid story begins like many women fibroid stories. I went for a regular OBGYN appointment, and a doctor examined me and said, "Oh, you have fibroids. So they're really small, and we can just watch and wait and see what happens." And I got excited. I was like, "Oh, wow, here's a doctor who doesn't want to cut me. She wants to watch and wait. Wow, she's so enlightened." Um, and so we watched and waited, and I kept doing exactly what I had done to cause me to have fibroids in the first place, not knowing any better. And next time I went to the doctor a couple of years later, they were like, "Oh, you have fibroid tumors. They're large. You have many of them, and you need a hysterectomy." So, I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget that day. And I told her that was not going to happen because my mama Maydell didn't raise no fool. And I was not going to just take this one doctor's opinion that I needed a hysterectomy. And she was like, "Well, you're anemic. Your hemoglobin is at 7, and you can have a heart attack on your next period." And I said, "What are you talking about? I'm leaving right here and I'm going hiking for 5 miles." And she was like, "You are in denial. You're in denial. You need a hysterectomy. You can go to a lot of people, but the message will be the same." So I was like, "Okay, right. Thank you." And I left there and I went to my car and I just cried. I knew I wasn't having a hysterectomy, but I just cried because I didn't know what I was gonna do. So I just was very open with people about what I was going through, in conversations with girlfriends. I know some people kind of keep, their story about fibroids kind of secret. And that's why a lot of people don't know about them. But I was very vocal. And so someone told me about Dr. Sebi. And I did Dr. Sebi's program religiously. I actually became his pet project. He invited me and a friend of mine to stay with him and his family at his house in Florida so that he could personally treat me and give me some specialized herbs and tonics and motions and potions and all kinds of stuff. And so I did his program and I did it religiously. I'm just the type of woman, you fellow Leo women out there, that, once we set our mind to doing something, we set our mind to doing it and we do it, strictly. So I did the diet strictly. I did everything that I was supposed to do, but my symptoms got better, but I still had fibroids and my hands got really blue. Like I was so anemic that you couldn't even see the blood in my hands. My hands were blue. So I tried a whole bunch of other things: acupuncture, acupressure, Chinese herbs, African herbs, all kinds of things. And Dr. Sebi, his program also religiously. One thing that did happen, I got real skinny, which is nice here in Hollywood, but I look like a lollipop. Literally, I was just head and just skinny. But my fibroids were like, "We ain't impressed with all this stuff you doing. Where you can do whatever you want, but we not going nowhere." And so finally, I met someone who told me about a Black woman in Beverly Hills who does myomectomies, which is where you remove the fibroids, but you leave the uterus intact, which was better than a hysterectomy. So I called Dr. Sebi and I told him, I said, "Look, I've done this, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this, and these fibroids aren't going anywhere." I said, I think what's missing in my case, and it's different, I'm sure, for every woman, is there's always a mind-body connection. And I said, since I was already, vegetarian, vegan, ate pretty good, you know, when I got fibroids, just eating these different ways that these holistic doctors are telling me to eat, my fibroids were not impressed. We like, we make you skinny, but we ain't going nowhere. So I said there was something going on in my mental, spiritual, metaphysical body that was contributing to me not being able to get rid of these fibroids. He said, sister, I think you're right. He said, I'm going to actually start talking about that. So I went on to have a myomectomy. And when I was waking up in the recovery room, my sister and my husband came into me and they said, you're not going to believe this. There's a woman in the waiting room with us, and a doctor came out to her and said, I'm so sorry. I know your sister is only 25 years old, but we had to give her a hysterectomy for her fibroids. And I just started crying. And I said, I'm doing a documentary. At that time, I was an actor. I never even thought about doing any kind of filmmaking at all, but it just came out of my spirit. I was like, I'm doing a documentary, because I realized that she was not the only person being told that at that moment in the world, that there were many women that were being told that very same thing. But my doctor, fortunately, told me that she doesn't convert myomectomies to hysterectomies, which is probably what happened to this young sister. The doctor went in to do a myomectomy. She started bleeding a lot, complications. He had another surgery scheduled, time, whatever, decided to just take this 25-year-old woman's uterus out. So I realized that people needed to know about fibroids. They needed to know about alternative treatments to fibroids. They needed to do research. They needed to know that there were alternatives to hysterectomies for fibroids. And so I embarked on this journey. I just said, okay, I'm going to do it. I didn't know how I was going to do it. Had no clue. I happened to be talking to a friend of mine who's a director who had directed me in some films. And he called me, and literally it was almost like I had Tourette's. If somebody said, hey, Prashant, how you doing? I'm doing a documentary on fibroids. Okay. We just asked you how you doing. So he called me, asked me how I was doing. I'm doing a documentary on fibroids. He said, really? He said, wow, my wife just had a hysterectomy. She just had a hysterectomy for fibroids. I want to do this with you, sister. Set up the interviews. I will fly out to LA with my camera equipment or wherever else we need to fly and interview people, and let's do this. And so that's how I got my partner, Roderick Giles. So I started embarking on information. And so since everybody knew what I was doing, I was the person people would call if they had fibroids or if they knew someone with fibroids. So a good friend of mine from junior high school, told me about Aisha. And she said that she passed the fibroid. And I was like, what? I've been in the operating room with Dr. Stanley West, author of The Hysterectomy Hoax. And I seen a uterus, and I seen him take a fibroid. I said, no way you can pass a fibroid. Really? So she sent me the evidence. I was like, okay, Roderick, that's my partner. We going to Atlanta, and we going to interview this sister Aisha, who helped her sisters pass fibroids. So we went out to Atlanta, and she happened to be having a womb wellness. We went and we interviewed her, and we interviewed her many women that she had helped from across the world. And she was passing around that fibroid in the glass jar and went on. And I became a believer. And I remember I asked Aisha why her herbs were working. I said, because I've tried so many different herbs and spices and diets and stuff over the years and was never able to shrink my fibroids. I was like, why? What's up with you? And I remember she told me something about got the recipes or the formulas from the ancestors. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. That makes sense. That makes sense. So since then, I've interviewed some other holistic healers who have been successful at helping women to shrink their fibroids or become asymptomatic. And it's a wonderful thing. I've met so many wonderful people. I want to talk about Sister Tanika Gray Valbrun, who started this foundation called the White Dress Project, who's been successful in getting 13 or 14 states, probably more by now, to name July Fibroid Awareness Month, which is a wonderful thing, and she's there to support anyone who's doing anything that has anything to do with fibroids. And I also interviewed her for my documentary. And she just had a screening a month ago with 3 other women who are also doing documentaries that have something to do with fibroids, infertility and fibroids. And, you know, mine was the only one that was featured that was actually focuses just on fibroids. So this journey has really led me to meet so many amazing people, to get so much information. There's actually, I think one of the main things in really helping women to be able to deal with fibroids successfully is looking at the whole picture. We've got to deal with our stressors in our life, because as we know, one of the hormones that our body produces when we're stressed is estrogen, and that's just food for fibroids. So, I mean, you were hard put to find, especially a woman of color with any kind of melanin who doesn't have stresses in their life. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we have to find ways to deal with that stress. We have to, you know, I know some people do Qigong, or they'll do meditation, or they'll do whatever it is. We have to be aware of it. We have to be conscious of it and what it can do, and really get to know ourselves deeply so that we can find out what the triggers are for us, so that we can deal with fibroids. And there's a whole bunch of other things that I've learned over the years. Just one of them is I talked to Dr. Joy DeGruy, Degruy. I'm not sure how you pronounce the name, but she wrote a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And she talks about, you know, stress, you know, in Black people. And she suggested I talk to epigeneticists. So because they can trace genetic predispositions in races. Mm-hmm. So say like Jewish people might have a certain disease, so she can link it to a lineage of what happens in that community, in that race, that might cause the alteration of the cell, which causes a predisposition. So I definitely, you know, have talked to people who feel there's a connection between our slave history, our oppression, our history in America, as well as, you know, being oppressed in Africa and the Caribbean and all kinds of places, which have altered our cells, which gives us a predisposition to, when we are stressed, cause these things called fibroids to manifest. Sonia Sanchez, who's a wonderful, wonderful person and a friend of a family, talks about it in my documentary. And there's a clip that I have of my documentary where she really talks about, you know, the connection of stress and fibroids in Black women. Mm-hmm. So I'm just so excited to be on this journey. This baby gonna be done. The documentary gonna be done in 2022. We just picked it up again. My husband has been helping, which is wonderful, because we needed to transcribe 55 hours of footage so that we can look at it and do a paper cut, so that we can hand that to an editor and really create an amazing documentary. So that's where we are now. We're about to launch a crowdfunding campaign, because we just got all of the transcriptions and we know what the story is that we want to tell. So that's basically my story. I'm sure there are going to be similarities with a lot of you sisters who are watching this, you know, in terms of, you know, how you found out you had fibroids, and also the symptoms. Our symptoms are always very similar: blood clots, you know, becoming anemic, tired, long periods, painful periods, all of those things. We all have that in common. In the clots the size of your hand, you know, I'm at parties and we have a little circle and sisters, and we start talking about fibroids, and everybody starts talking about these clots the size of their hand. But yeah, we do have that in common. And then I've also talked to women who of Armenian descent, of Jewish women. Is interesting also, you know, having a history of oppression in those groups of people too. So there's definitely some connection between, you know, I don't like to say victimization, but, you know, a feeling of being oppressed or not being free, and how that manifests in our body and how it changes our DNA. So those are the kinds of things that we explore in the documentary, and I can't wait for you guys to see it.
Well, you know, that's exactly, I talk about that too. And before I even knew about the post-traumatic slave syndrome, I mean, you look at the history of women, and you recognize that that history has to lead to something other than just being a hard worker. You know, because
Yes.
this is a spiritual, physical, energetic thing, and that
Yeah.
doesn't stop with you. You know,
Right.
and when women start telling you about, well, it's everybody in my family, all the women in my family have it. Your family, just like with genetic high blood pressure, your family had a lot of issues around rape. Let's say it
Yeah.
out loud, and around other types of sexual oppression, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And when that you recognize that you're holding yourself down and being, I have the good girl syndrome, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to save people and taking on everybody's everything and putting yourself last and doing everybody's stuff first, and just the different sacrifices. We basically, women use their bodies, black women, as a sacrifice.
Yeah.
We put ourselves there in front of our sons, husbands, communities. We have always done that, and we
Yeah.
continue to do it, you know. And I remember when I was a student at UC Berkeley, there was a graduate student at that time. Her name was Merway, and she says, and this is what got me into thinking about this from back in 1987. She says that black women use weight as a way to protect their spirit, their soul, their heart. So they gain weight
Mm-hmm.
to protect themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've never
Yeah.
seen a situation in which that was not the truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you know that if you're using the weight, there's just that comes genetically also. Your family, y'all eat together, y'all have share the same mindset,
Right.
ideas, attitudes about men, the
Right.
whole thing. And it transfers. So transferring this is not just, oh, my mama got it, my sister got it. It's also food mindset, spiritual attitudes, physical
Absolutely.
attitudes, everything,
That's
you
what
know.
predisposition is. People think
Right.
that, oh, it's, runs in my family means that they automatically have to get it. It
No,
just
you
means
have to
you're
put all the pieces
predisposed.
together.
Right. If you're predisposed, right, you have that genetic, marker.
Combination. Yeah.
But if you do everything exactly like everyone else who got it, yes, you
Yeah.
will absolutely get it. But if you
Right.
change that karma and you do
Right.
something different, you
Right.
can change that. And it doesn't
Right.
mean that you have to get it just because it runs in your family.
Right. But you know what happens is people eat together,
Yeah.
and they go to family events, and they don't think, okay, well, I can't wait to get there because we're going to have this special dish, and I don't usually eat it, but when I get home I eat a lot of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so we have a lot of those kinds of things. But the good girl syndrome is one of the ways that we keep it going, because
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to make people mad. We don't want people to be upset with us. We don't want to tell them no, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, we keep shoveling fast, as fast and fast, even though we taking herbs and we doing other stuff. We still don't want to stop um, our patterns that
Yeah.
think are keeping us happy,
Yeah.
but really they're not keeping us happy. They're keeping us stuck.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that, since we talking about this, women in the South, and women and Caribbean African women, they have it at a whole different level on the
Mm-hmm.
good girl syndrome than Californians or Midwesterners, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and East Coast people,
Mm-hmm.
because we have to have, I guess, a certain attitude about how we gonna live, because we can't live with all of that and the pressure of the weather and all of that stuff. So we have a different attitude, and that's what's been a valuable thing for me, to be a person who has roots in the South, knows Southern ways, but grew up in Michigan. So I
Yeah.
know what is expected, but I also know what I'm not gonna do.
Right. 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 Right.
And having raised myself in California for that whole time, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
you could
definitely
see,
had the good girl syndrome. I was raised in the Nation of Islam, so I definitely thought I should do this and shouldn't do that, and always had a lot of guilt, and and
Guilt.
stuff. So definitely I was, and highly stressed, having relationship issues at the time, career issues, money issues. All of that happened right before I was diagnosed with fibroids.
Right.
And my sisters have them too. Both of my sisters have them, but I'm doing my best to, give my niece information so that, she doesn't manifest them.
Right.
But sometimes you can tell a fibroid personality now, because I've been doing this.
You know what? I know the person.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, that's a fibroid waiting to happen. Or she has, you can just tell. You can just tell.
That's why I call it I have a whole thing, and I'm going to give it in this seminar on what you do and that's going to turn into.
The cause and the effect.
Cause and the effect. Yes. Because there's very few ways, or there's very few other opportunities for it to turn up in anything else other than more serious illnesses than fibroids. Fibroids is number one. That's the number one thing you're gonna get. If you don't get that, then it's other
things. It'll be cancer.
Cancer. I try not to say the big C. But that is one of the things that you will get if you keep on this road. Fibroids are not cancer. They cannot turn into cancer. A lot of practitioners will try to scare you like she did. You're going to have a heart attack at your next cycle. That's never going to happen.
And she told me that too. That same doctor, she told me that your fibroids are so large that they might be hiding cancer. Kids might be hiding behind the fibroids. So I said, can't you do a test to find out if cancer is present? You can do a test. So don't be trying to just say stuff to scare me. Do the test. And there was no cancer. It was just
there never
fibroids.
is.
That was the scare tactic.
Never is. But they want you to feel like, wow, thank you so much. You saved me from possibly coming up with cancer. So even though you took everything and you told me you were only going to make 4 little snips, I'm so thankful to you, because now, even though I don't have a womb, I at least don't have cancer.
Yeah. And even though I had a myomectomy, it's almost like I had a hysterectomy. My body had been so traumatized. I had ectopic pregnancies before. I had a pregnancy where there was a cyst formed that ruptured. So I had a surgery for that. So my third surgery was a myomectomy. And my body was like, Miss Thing, you don't know what you're doing. So we shutting down. And I went into sudden menopause right after my myomectomy, which is very rare. But my body was just like, we're done. We're going to just close up because you don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's big. It's big. But I'm very happy that it's grown as it has, with Professor Dr. Joy DeGuerre, I know you're talking about. Yeah. So it's good. And I'm glad that people are, because epigenetics is a very profound science as far as these types of things. Now, and like you were saying, Jews, they have a lot of illnesses too, but they have had a very traumatic history like we have.
Yes.
And so they have serious things that are epigenetically defined.
And they get fibroids too. So I didn't know whether it was the relaxers that some of them get, or whether it was the history of oppression. So it could be a combination of both. Because I've seen many a Jewish woman sitting there getting her curls relaxed.
Right.
Yeah. And then Armenian genocide. The Armenian genocide.
It's a toxic lifestyle. That's basically what it is. And it can be spiritual, physical, chemical. Toxic lifestyles is what does it. And most people don't realize they're in a toxic lifestyle until they're faced with a diagnosis.
Right. Exactly.
And then they start re-examining and saying, oh, everybody don't do this. I mean, they really think that they're living a normal life.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting. My mom was way ahead of her time. I just turned 60 on August 17th. And back in the 70s and late 60s, she was feeding us wheatgrass and exploring vegetarianism and, all kinds of things. So it was always kind of in my consciousness. And I always kind of ate not as bad. I didn't eat the standard American diet. But that stress, overload. I
mean, I've seen people who have had car accidents. Right after the car accident, they started having problems, I mean, or their mama died. or they're
Yeah.
getting something dramatic and shape
Yep.
shifting happen in their life.
Absolutely.
And once that happened, everything went from there.
And
And
all
you
the
know,
women
I
I've
tell,
interviewed, that's been the case. Yes.
yep, yep.
And I've interviewed
And,
thousands, about at least 1,000 women.
oh yeah. And
Yeah.
you know, one of the things that I would ask is that I tell women they're not my fibroids. You
Right.
know, you don't own them, you don't love them, and you don't want to keep them. And because we are talking about, you know, spiritual and
Yeah.
energetic,
Yeah.
not claiming them as mine, my fibroids, my this, it works better for you because now it's not like y'all on the same team together and you have to give permission, I mean,
Right.
to let them go. No, you are on the way out, you know? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
almost parasitic because of how they drain you from
Yeah.
blood and they drain your life energy, and you know they're in your orange chakra, which is your creative chakra, which you've done well with.
Yes.
But when you have something that's at that angle and at that level doing, taking away from you on a day by day, it's not just a month, it's every day, all day, you
Yeah.
know. And so when women, you know, want to say, well, my fibroids are doing this and I want to get some tonic, well, I'll get back to you. I say, well, you know what, you might get back to me, but the fibroid is doing everything it's doing while we talking and in the meantime. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no, you don't have no waiting times, you
Right.
know.
Right.
And you don't need to wait for a diagnosis to do the types of womb detoxes that's necessary. You don't have to get approval because most of us women want permission from those people who are not giving you good information to begin
Right.
with.
Right.
You don't
Right.
need permission. They're not going to sanctify what you're doing, you know. And when you recognize that we have cut our bodies up to do different things to different doctors in different pieces, then you
Mm.
recognize that's why you're not keeping together. That when you say somebody makes your stomach hurt or gives you a, you know, they really do. They
Mm.
really do. You know, if something happens, you say, oh, he makes my stomach hurt. That is real, down
Yeah.
to the stomach. That's
Yeah.
real. And that's why you have to cut that kind of thing, no matter who it is. You
Yeah.
know, you don't give special permission for some people to jack up your body no matter what you're doing. And other people, they, you know, they don't get a pass, but some people get a pass, including your job,
Right.
which means,
Or your husband or your
or
boyfriend or
you
your
know what,
girlfriend or your yeah.
husband, sister, kids,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you know what, and I'm gonna tell you, 9 times out of 10, it's parents, husband, kids,
Mm-hmm.
job. That's
Yeah.
how it goes, you know.
Yeah.
Unless you don't have kids, and then it's job, husband, parents, you know.
Yeah. But I would say this too, back to what I was saying about the watch and wait method that
That
I
watch
thought
and
was
wait
so
method is making it grow so that they can
yeah,
surgery
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Don't
And I
wait.
didn't know that. I was so
Yeah.
happy she didn't want to cut me. But then I found out watch and wait is not a good thing unless you're going to change something. But if you're just watching and waiting, you're doing exactly what you've been doing, you're just going to watch and wait for them to grow.
You know what that is too, is they wanted to get to a certain size so that the insurance would pay for their surgery. If it's too small, they won't the insurance company won't pay for it. So that's
Mm.
why they let it go. They said, well, we're gonna keep an eye on it. I
Yeah.
tell all women, if that was on your face, there would be no way you would allow someone to tell you to keep an eye
Keep
on
an
something
eye on it.
growing on your face.
That's
It
true.
doesn't matter that it's
That's true.
inside. It is still all hands on deck, you know?
Right, right. It's not
And
supposed to
don't
be
wait.
there.
Don't wait, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So I really appreciate it. I can't wait when you have your red carpet. I'm coming.
Yes, of course, of course, of course. You and Queen
I'm coming.
Afua, Queen
And
Afua
I'm just
Smooth.
very happy that you got everything so organized with around it now, because this is good stuff and women need to know. And you know, you see different celebrities as yourself having you know, jumping in and jumping out on various causes, but this is something that affects women of color every single day.
Every
And
single
it's
day.
always new women coming forward who are wondering, what did I do? You know, what
Yeah,
can I do now? And if the only place you have to go is your OBGYN, that is not a good sign.
Yeah, yeah. There's a sister who's I think she's on CNN or something, who just did a whole segment on it. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
2 days ago on
Oh wow.
fibroids. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, yeah, just
Okay.
2 days
Okay.
ago. Yeah. They let her
Okay.
like just focus on that in her journey.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's fabulous. That's
Yeah.
fabulous. I want good. Well,
Thank you
I
so much
told
for
you.
this opportunity.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you. You know what? When we start talking, there it goes. There it goes. So I appreciate you being here at the Womb Wellness. You were here before, and we were trying to we're not trying. We starting it up again, and we're gonna
Yes.
do it this
So
way because
necessary.
I got sisters in Ireland, and I mean, because Africans are all over the world,
Yes. Yes.
and
My
we having the
OBGYN
problems.
who did the OBGYN who did my myomectomy was in Dubai doing myomectomies. Black women who are in Dubai. She had a booming business in Dubai
Yep,
doing myomectomies.
yep, yep, yep. And you know what? If that's the way to determine where to go based on the stress,
Mm. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, go somewhere where you gotta,
Yeah, exactly.
you
Exactly.
know, and
Yeah.
see how many women show up,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's just something that you have to be trained to accept,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But thank
Well,
you so
thank you
much,
so much.
Prashant.
You
I
guys have a
appreciate you.
great,
Did
great.
you want to tell people about your vegan ice cream? Are you doing that still?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well,
Yes.
I have a vegan dessert business called Mama Auntie's Vegan Goodies. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook by the same name, Mama Auntie's Vegan Goodies. I make vegan desserts. I use coconut palm sugar in much of it. I do vegan ice cream with a cashew and almond milk base. It's the best that you ever have tasted. It's creamy. I could put it up against in Haagen-Dazs because my husband's not vegan. And he said it
Right.
tastes as good as Haagen-Dazs. That's when I knew I could unleash it on the public. So that's coming soon too. I have a business partner, and we meet with a co-packer, and it's going to be out in stores within the next couple of years. So keep an eye out for that too.
Yay.
Mama Auntie's Vegan Goodies.
Oh, yay. I'm so happy for you. That's a great thing because that's what women need. When I tell them no sugar, they're like, how long? Everything is, how long can I do this? Well, how long did it take you to get here? you
Yeah.
know, it is,
Yeah.
it's not a quick fix. It's
Yeah.
lifestyle. It's
Yes.
lifestyle,
Yeah. There's a sister going to be calling you. I spoke with the other day. Hopefully she said she was going to call you that day.
You know what? So many sisters call me from you on a regular
Yeah. Good.
basis,
Good.
and they
Good.
are
Good.
like relieved. Oh my God, finally, I don't
Yeah.
have to just have just one channel of relief. I now
Yeah.
can do something in the meantime. And who wants to bleed, like a faucet for 14 days or longer with no relief,
Yeah.
So this is really something that women have to be able to take themselves to another level. Because I mean, before we were working at home, women couldn't go to work, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really, the stories were really amazing at what because we have a high level tolerance for
Yes.
discomfort. And so
Yes.
we'll just keep on putting on maternity pads and two
Yep.
pair of jeans and two pair of panties. And I mean, we just keep adding stuff,
Yep. That's so true. That's what
you
we
know,
do.
we have a high
That's what we got to
tolerance. So
change.
yeah, we're going to change it. So thank you so
Thank you
much,
so
sis.
much. Love
Okay, have a
you.
great herbal day.
You too.
Ovario.
Ovario.
Okay, then. We'll have another one in just a minute, y'all. Stay tuned.